Okay, again, those join us now, welcome to the final meeting of the 2016 Board of Supervisors calendar. This is our regular meeting of December 13th, 2016. I do have one brief announcement. That's that Supervisor Jaime de la Cruz had to step out. He had a family matter he's attending to, so he does not know when he'll be back. We anticipate he'll be back hopefully around about 11 o'clock or so. So at this time, moving on to item C, presentations and recognitions. I'm going to go ahead and hold off to the proclamation honoring our colleague Margie Barrios. I'm going to wait until Jaime gets back, so we have the opportunity to have a photo op with the whole board, with Supervisor with Ms. Barrios. And so I'll move on to the next one. That's to present a certificate of recognition to Jack Wender in insurance, recognizing 26 years of broker services to San Miguel County employees. Does this require a motion, the certificate?
No.
No, okay. So I was told that Ms. Cochran will do a brief presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. We had planned to have Jack Wender here this morning, but he is, as a broker of insurance services and in particular health insurance, he is out with his clients this morning. This is a busy open enrollment season for him. So, excuse me. But it's a little bit different role than Supervisor Barrios fills, but he has been with the county, been providing these broker services initially through McTavish and Wender, and then as Jack Wender Insurance Services for 26 years. He filled a hole initially with respect to guiding the county when they were self-insured, and then as the county moved to CalPERS Health, he fulfilled a whole role, whatever you want to call it, that CalPERS didn't fulfill in terms of advising us on better ways to do things that we could do, and probably from a less big picture perspective, but certainly a critical perspective, an employee has a problem. And when an employee has a problem with their insurance, they've got somebody in a hospital, in an emergency room, whatever it might be, and they're getting, no, your insurance isn't valid, they're getting some kind of runaround, or no, this medication isn't covered. All of those little things sound pretty insignificant unless you're the person with the problem, and then it's generally because someone is very ill and needs something. And in my limited time here, I think I've had to call him or had an employee call him 3 different times, and within 10 minutes, that problem was resolved. So for the person who had the problem, that's huge. For us, needing him as an advisor, probably not so huge. But he did fill a huge role. He was a key guider as we moved through this exit of CalPERS health insurance, and really provided us a lot of expertise. He reviewed our RFP, he helped us with the scoring, he did an awful lot of things to ensure that, number one, we could defend the process that we used in the event the county was challenged, and those kinds of things, but as well as kind of answering some key questions, giving us historical perspective. So with that exit, none of us intended to do this to put Jack Wender out of a job. However, that's just one of the benefits in the county having made a decision to move to CSAC EIA, is that we do have a different broker, and I spent some time with Tom Scher talking to him about some of the little things that Jack Wender did, not just the big things, and asking him, do they provide that, because sometimes those are critical. And yes, they do, and he described some of the same situations that Jack had been involved in. But from a perspective from human resources, who relied on him heavily with respect to answering questions about some of the complex things in CalPERS where we were not experts, he has just been nothing short of phenomenal. And so with that, we did want to recognize him, and our plan was to have him here. but what I'm trying to do now is to meet with him sometime in the next 2 weeks and present this to him personally, sometimes where his travels and my travels can get a little closer together. So we will do that, but we do have this plaque to present, and it says recognition for 26 years of broker services for health insurance to San Benito County employees, 1990 to 2016. That is just huge. So I thank you all for providing this, and I will make sure that he gets this. And with that, it kind of closes the chapter. A little bit bittersweet as well, but he's done a wonderful job, and on behalf of Human Resources, from a staff perspective, we certainly couldn't have done without him.
Thank you for that, Georgia. That was great. So moving on to item D, public comment. Mr. Clerk, this is the opportunity for the public to address the board on items of interest not appearing on the agenda. No action may be taken unless it is provided by Government Code Section 54954.2. Mr. Clerk.
Supervisor-elect Mark Medina.
At this time, I'd like to thank Supervisor Margie Barrios for 8 years of loyal service to San Benito County. I've only provided a couple minutes to speak, but with all her successes, I would need several days, months, or even years to talk about all the accomplishments she has provided this county. Margie was not only a phenomenal supervisor, she is an extraordinary sister, grandmother, wife, mother, aunt, niece, godmother, cousin, and a very close friend to many. Margie has been an important part of our county and will continue to be an important part of the county after she leaves the Board of Supervisors. What best describes Margie is her endless commitment to San Benito County. Because of her commitment, she has been nominated by the Chamber of Commerce as a Woman of the Year, and she'll be recognized at San Juan Oaks on Saturday, January 28th, and I strongly urge that each and every one of you attend this important event. Margie is the type of person that honors commitments. A commitment made by Margie was something that was etched in stone and was guaranteed to be completed on time, on budget, and in a perfect manner. In closing, I wish Ms. Barrios and her family the best life has to offer in retirement. On another note, I can promise Ms. Barrios that the district she is leaving behind will be in good hands, as I personally know the person that will be taking her position. He is passionate, dedicated, business-minded, and ready for his first meeting on Tuesday, January 10th. Thank you.
Janie Loston.
Good morning. My name is Janie Loston. I live in Tres Pinos, and my discussion here is in regards to a member of the Water Board District, Mike Howard. To begin with, back in 1992, I moved into Hollister from Tres Pinos, and I did retain my house in Tres Pinos, and it was known then at the time that I had to leave the board. I could not stay on the board. I'm a little concerned about having someone from out of the district on the board. There is, to begin with, several years ago, Mr. Howard has two little houses on Airline Highway, and he wanted to upgrade them, and the board was unable to allow him to do that because of the moratorium that we have been in for almost 25 years, which we are working on trying to get out of. I'm not on the board, by the way. When I say we, I'm just talking about the county, the district. The water board members agreed to support his 2 houses being upgraded once the moratorium has been removed. But at his now that he's on the board, at the last meeting, he said he wants not only to upgrade, he wants to tear those 2 houses down and build 4 houses, 4 little apartments, not houses. And there are several people that have already requested that they be able to build in Tres Pinos, and they're unable to. There's a list. In fact, the list is so long, some of the people are now deceased. So I'm just concerned about the California code that states that you must be a resident of Tres Pinos or your particular county. You need to be in that district in order to be on a board. So I would like that you consider reconsidering the Mike Howard appointment. Thank you.
Mary Ann Hughes.
Good morning. I'm Mary Ann Hughes. I'm elected to the board of Tres Pinos Water District. I'll raise my hand in a couple of days, but at this point, I am here. First, I want to say, Margie, I've just been thrilled to work with you at the Kids at the Park program for the last several years, and you really helped bring it back when it kind of got slowed up. And it's not just all your work you do for the county, but for the people too. And I'm proud of you. Anyway, okay. Last week I sent all of you some information regarding the issue of Mr. Howard on our board, and I wanted to make sure that the funding that we are getting from the state requires that we be following all the rules. And having Mr. Howard on our board is breaking the rules. We have a $100,000 grant right now that we're about $60,000 into. If they find that we are not being upfront and right, they could essentially take those funds away from us. And I'm really nervous about that fact, and I really want to know if you guys would be willing to revisit or rehear this with the new information that you've gotten in the last week. I've been told that my only option now is to go to court. I think that this is so obvious that having to do that would really be a travesty. I would like to think that you guys can fix this on your own. Thank you very much.
Marty Richmond.
Good morning, Marty Richmond from Hollister. So last meeting of the year. Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday, Happy New Year to everybody, to you and yours, and I hope you have a successful and happy New Year. So if my friend Marvin Jones is not here anymore and can't be here, I'm sure he would like to say a few words, if he were here, on Margie Barrios's retirement. I'll use that term. So I'll speak for what I think he would say, which would be thank you very much for your service. And all members of the board, Margie among them, had many times make me miserable. But I have to say, it isn't easy. I recognize that. And I hope the public recognizes it. It takes an enormous amount of hours. Takes an enormous amount of dedication. Takes the same amount of time to be right or to be wrong, in my opinion. And so, but I appreciate the hard work you all do. And Margie's done it for 8 years. So I've spent, I like to brag about the fact that I spent so much of my adult life, probably a third of what my adult life is expected to be, in the service. And we had a saying in the service, which is, because people move around a lot, which is the place you're leaving And the people you're leaving are the best place and the best people you've ever known. And the people and the place you're going are the best people and the best place you're ever going to know. So don't be sad about leaving. Don't be glad about leaving. Just look on it as a life experience that you will never forget. Thank you for your service to the people of San Benito County. I'm sure they all appreciate it. Thank you.
Are there any other comments from members of the public? Now's the time to provide some comments.
Valerie Eglund, Reach San Benito Parks Foundation. We just changed our name. I wanted to thank Margie Barrios for all the support she has given this entire community for the health and welfare of children and families and parks and recreation. She has been a strong woman's voice. I have to say it. I said, Valerie, don't be sexist. But I say, you know, that voice is just so important, and I regret that you won't be coming back to the board, but very happy that you will continue engagement in the community.
Any other comments from members of the public? At this time, we will move on to item E, Department of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we do have a couple of announcements. We have one announcement out of our Health and Human, actually out of our Human Resources Department. We have Georgia Cochran here. Give a brief announcement.
Very brief. Open enrollment for health insurance for 2017 is finished. We have been diligently tracking some of our retirees who did not respond, where we didn't have Social Security numbers and all kinds of data. And when I say we, it's not we, it's the staff who has been here. They have done just a yeoman's job and a tremendous amount of work, which we knew would be the case with any change. I think this will make it easier in the future. But they are done, and now they're moving on to affordable health care implementation. But it is finished.
Thank you, Georgia. We also have another announcement out of RMA. We have Brent Barnes, Director of RMA.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. I just very briefly want to draw your attention to, if I can get the technology to work, the Integrated Waste Management website, which now features a whole variety of recycling materials, everything from yard waste and medical sharps to dead batteries and so on. It's a really good resource, and I hope that the community finds it very useful. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes.
And the last item is I've been asked to pull item number 27 from consent to move to our next meeting in January. That's out of our probation office. So that's all the announcements, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Moving on to item F, board announcements. I'll start from my left. Supervisor Barrios.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I attended the Lights On celebration that happened here the weekend after Thanksgiving. It was a wonderful event. And then the week later, I attended the one in Gilroy because my granddaughter happened to be in that parade. But I want to say that people go all out to make this community so much fun and to have so much participation. It was absolutely beautiful. So I thank all the organizers for making it such a wonderful holiday event. And I just want to say thank you to all of you. I want to say thank you to the folks that spoke, and I really appreciate your comments. I am going to miss you so much, but I really look forward to my retirement and spending more time with family. That's always the reason that most people retire. So, again, thank you for all your beautiful comments. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Barnes. Supervisor De La Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to apologize to the public. I had to attend my grandchild's first Christmas song, and I got to hug them and sing with them for about 5-10 minutes, and just put 5 minutes in your grandkid's life makes a big difference.
Yes, it does.
Mr. Chair, we Supervisor Munzer and I had the Vets Commission, and I know it's on the agenda later on, but I think I need to express how I feel right now. We have an issue at Vets Park. We don't have the funds, we don't have the personnel to continue to maintain our parks at the Vets Park. And I've actually asked, where's our guy? There he is, our Brent. Brent, what are we going to do in light of the county moving forward and building more parks? And so we need to really seriously, Ray, can we continue to afford the parks the way they are today, and then knowing in the future we want to build more? So the bottom line is we need a two-part fiscal question. That is, one, can we sustain ongoing maintenance expense for parks that we will build in the future? That's the first part question. The second part question is, what relationship will we have with the public if we do build parks? Because Vets Park, to me, it's a hub of what could potentially happen in the future, and that is you have the Hollister Tremors, the Babe Ruth, the Little League, the Hollister Heat, a bunch of other organizations that now have taken ownership of these parks, and they're asking us that it's our problem that we need to make sure there's water available to all these facilities. So, and I know it's in the agenda down the road, so just food for thought for today, I guess, is that we need to work on solving that, and I know that the Vets Commission will meet again, reconvene next year, and that's one of the things I really want to see, start planning, and bring it back to the board and see what we can do, because I, for one, can't support building more parks if we're not going to have the fiscal ongoing expenditures to maintain those parks. That's just my first question. Second one, Mr. Chair, I attended the City Hollister City Council meeting, and interesting, there was a proposal on medical marijuana resolution, and I guess the City Hollister is getting real close to doing allowing 2 dispensaries in the City Hollister, 2, the discussion of either putting it within 600 feet of a church, residential or school. That's all up in the air, and I'll come back at the next City Council meeting. So hopefully the City Hollister will have their medical marijuana resolution done, so then we, the county, I know we have a moratorium in place, we, the county, can start moving on creating some type of resolution, or better yet, start working with the City Hollister how we can best utilize whatever framework is out there. And finally, Mr. Chair, I attended the CSAC conference last week, and some of the meetings that I attended, some of the conferences or sessions that I attended, was the future of marijuana regulation. It's no longer the discussion of marijuana, but it's actually how we're going to regulate medical marijuana. And it was a standing room only. We had about 150 county supervisors attend this meeting. It was the hottest item on this conference. And so we as a county need to either take some active lead. Are we going to continue to work on not allowing it here, or we're going to work with the community and control it locally? Because we don't want it out of control in San Bernardino County. I'd rather have it controlled, over-regulated, and have everyone registered and over-regulated to the depth in which we control it, and San Bernardino County does not become an out of control where you have marijuana facilities every part in the community in the county. So I won't support that, but I will support a regulation and over-regulation. Another session that I attended, Mr. Chair, was the innovation and opportunities on how to create affordable housing. Folks, we all got the same problem. It's every time a new house is being built, it's not really being built for low-income families, and it's up and down the state of California. I also attended a farewell to our CSAC president, Richard Forster, which actually is a good friend of myself and Supervisor Botello. In fact, he talks highly of you, Supervisor Botello.
Somebody does, at least.
Someone does. And he's an outgoing. And then we also made a nice contributions and a nice tribute to our retiring Supervisor Margie Barrios. You know, I spoke in your behalf at our regular board meeting of CSAC. And to my surprise, there were actually 59 county supervisors that were either out-termed, retiring, or for whatever reason. which was about 22% of the entire county supervisors of the state of California. And that was impressive. And other than that, I attended other meetings too, Mr. Chair. One of the things that I want to leave and express to my fellow supervisors, that there's a phrase that we're all going to hear in the near future, and that's called track and trace. And it's basically what it is we track the marijuana and we trace it where it goes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Dozier. Supervisor Munson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only thing I have to say is I want to echo Mr. Richmond's sentiments. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year's to everyone. Thank you.
Yes, I have the same sentiments. I took the words right out of my mouth. Merry Christmas, everyone, and Happy Holidays, and hope everyone has a safe and prosperous New Year. And I attended a meeting with Supervisor De La Cruz earlier this week on with discussion with staff with the impact fees. We've been working on this for quite some time, and it's coming to a point where we got to just get this done because we have some growth in the community. And so in the consent, which I want to point out to the public, and the board knows that, you know, we're going through a contract with the number 7, the Will Down Financial Services, to help us complete a study to get this impact fee project to the board and done. And so we were still working very hard on that. Hopefully we get this completed first part of next year. And as I mentioned earlier, Supervisor Barrios and I worked on a facilities committee meeting yesterday, and we have a schedule with our RMA representative on some of the projects, and things are moving along. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that, I as well want to wish everybody happy holidays, happy New Year. I hope you guys be safe this holiday season. The only announcement I have to make is I wanted to create a new ad hoc a committee today. In January, when I assumed the chairmanship here on the board, I proposed in my State of the County address that we make it a top priority to build a new county library and community center. And so during the State of the County address, I suggested the following. I said we should build a place of learning and discussion that will be a model for the rest of the state, a place where our entire our county and community can come to express the beauty of learning. And this should not just be a library with bookshelves, but an interactive place where people will gather to share ideas, read and borrow books, reserve conference rooms, possibly attend classes, use a computer, browse the internet, a place where one can experience a true sense of community. It should be a beautiful building that will be the epicenter of our county. I'm glad that some of the nicest of the government buildings in our county are the courthouse across the street, the police station, and our 2 fire stations. But shouldn't our schools and libraries be just as nice? So let us collaborate with our local schools and high school district, with the City of Hollister, San Juan Bautista, and with our local businesses to make this a reality. That's what I said in January. And so recently, county and city governments have established new library impact fees charged to new residential construction and development, with the intention that such dollars will help expand and improve our current library services in the county. Now, this is a very encouraging first step, but however, the construction of a new community library will require that the county generate substantially more revenue. And we're going to have to work to foster greater of the collaboration between local government here in San Benito County, and we absolutely have to seek community partnerships to get this done. Now, this county has not asked local residents for a sales tax increase in over a decade. I believe that now is the time to research the feasibility of pursuing a library construction bond or a special library tax measure. And so with that, I'm going to create an ad hoc a committee that's going to be tasked with preparing an analysis related to a potential revenue-generating measure for construction of a new community library. And so although Ms. Barrios thinks she's leaving today, you're going to be appointed to the committee. I'm just joking.
Okay, I can do that.
All joking aside, I'm going to appoint myself to this committee and to the vice chair and incoming chairman, Mr. Jaime de la Cruz. And all joking aside, and I'm sure Ms. Barrios will agree that we absolutely need to make this happen. We can't simply brush this aside and say it can't be done, because it absolutely can be done. It will be done, and together, as a community, within local governments, as citizens, as residents, we can make this happen. And I think we need to take this jump to make sure that we allow voters to have the option to vote up or down for a measure to construct a new library. The city of Gilroy did it, and communities all across the state have done it, and we need to do it. And I think that the leadership begins at this board in making sure that this gets accomplished. So that's the announcement I have to make. And so moving on to the consent agenda, are there any items? Oh, actually, prior to going into the consent agenda, now that we have the full board here, I want to go back to board presentations and present a proclamation in recognition of Supervisor Margie Barrios for her dedicated service to the people of San Benito County. And so with that, we have, I know, the Senator Anthony Canales' office brought a certificate. Unfortunately, Reed, I believe, left. And we do have also a congressional record from the Honorable Sam Farr, our former congressman. As I'll read a little bit about of what the record says. It says, Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor Margie Barrios, a model public servant, on the occasion of her retirement from the San Benito County Board of Supervisors. I've had the great pleasure in working with Margie over the years, and I am proud to honor my friend and thank her for her service. So that's from our former congressman. And so I'm going to invite the entire board to join me up here in front, and I'll read the proclamation from. You get the middle. So this is, obviously, we've already had the opportunity to bid Margie a farewell this morning. But this is a proclamation from our board in recognition of the contributions that Margie has had to this county. And so obviously, a few whereases. Whereas Margie Barrios has contributed to her community throughout the years as a school board member, as a member of this board. But I believe the most important work she's done as a volunteer, and the time you've done to give back, whether it be parks, whether it be our library. You've always been an advocate for what makes this county great, and that's your ability to give back. She has served on a number of committees, behavioral health. I remember when I became a supervisor, I was appointed to the Behavioral Health Committee, and all due respect to Alan. Where's Alan? Is he here? Alan? We all love behavioral health, but I got there and my head was spinning a little bit. So I called Margie. I said, Margie, would you mind replacing me? She said, absolutely. And she's been an absolute asset to behavioral health. She's also served on the First Five Commission here in San Benito County. And I know I already mentioned it, but your commitment to parks. I remember there was a time on this board when the regional park was a great plan. It was a great idea on paper, but there was a time when this board was split on what we do moving forward with impact fees related to parks, and you led the charge to make sure that this board remained committed to seeing this regional park through. And so that would not have been done without Margie. So therefore, upon her retirement from the county of San Benito, the Board of Supervisors issues this proclamation recognizing and commending Margie Barrios for her many contributions to our community. Thank you, Margie.
because I have the mic, Mr. Chair, if I could. I've already given my spiel earlier, but I don't want to say goodbye. I want to say see you later, because I will be continuing with behavioral health. I put in my application so that I could continue as a community member. I talked to Jim. I will still be a part of the homeless planning committee as a community person. I will be putting an application in for First Five so I can continue. And YMCA, of course, and anything else that I can do. This community has given me a lot more than I can give back, and for not just to me, but to my family. And I will be forever grateful for this community taking that lead with us ever since we arrived here back in 1964. Mark, where are you? Are you still in the room? There you are. Thank you for those wonderful words. I have no doubt that you will continue in a path that I think will take San Benito County to another level. Thank you for stepping up to the plate, and I encourage others, just like Mark, to someday be a part of the political part of San Benito County. You learn so much, you get so much by being involved, unbelievably so, that I really regret leaving, but I'm looking forward to my retirement. So thank you, Mark, for that. And again, I encourage others to do the same. So supervisors, thank you. And like I said at my farewell party, I should have been chair all the time that I was on the board, because I could have sat in the middle, two guys on one side, two guys on the other side. That would have been great balance, don't you think? But no. But anyway, I want to thank you. You have been absolutely a joy to work with. I am so glad that we've been able to accomplish so much and to laugh together. I will leave here with a lot of friendships that I will treasure for the rest of my life. And for that, I will be forever grateful. Thank you to the county for the wonderful farewell party. My family, most of my family attended, and that was wonderful. Thank you for the reception today. It was great to see all of you here. I will miss you terribly, but I have to say that I really am looking forward to the next chapter. So I will open that page after today and see what happens. So thank you again.
Okay, so with that, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that wish to be pulled by any member of the board?
Yep.
Oh.
Supervisor Patel?
28.
Supervisor Munzer?
The same one I had.
28.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to just have a comment. So number 23, number 24, 25, 26, and 27.
23, 24, 25, 26 has been pulled.
And then also number 30, number 31. And mine are all just a comment on it.
Okay.
Number 22, Mr. Chair, I would like to highlight that item.
22, okay.
Thank you.
So with that, we are pulling items 22, 23, 24, 25, 27, 28 for comment. 26 has been pulled by staff. Can I get a motion for approval?
No, 27's been pulled by staff.
Oh, 27's been pulled by staff.
So it'll be 23 through 26 that'll actually be pulled.
Gotcha. All right.
22 also. My apologies.
So 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27 pulled by staff, and 28. All right. Our house is in order. Okay. Do I have a second?
And 31.
I didn't.
32.
No.
I did not hear any 30.
31.
31.
So from Jaime?
Yes, 31.
Okay, 31.
Yes.
So I'll make a motion to approve the remaining consent agenda items, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And so is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So now let us pull these. Item 22, Supervisor De La Cruz.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, 22? No, that's not me. 22 is not.
I believe that was Margie's.
Supervisor Barrios, sorry.
That was Supervisor.
Item 22.
Barrios.
Number 22. Okay, I'd like to just call up to the podium our County Superintendent of Schools and Ted, because I think I want to highlight this resolution. This is a resolution that I believe is really important to our community in that it supports the education, the literacy, and it's a great step to take. So if you don't mind coming up and just giving us just a little short look into what we're doing. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I think this is quite a special commitment that we're making. If we approve it.
You can start. So thank you, and sentiments to Margie. She's worked in my short 2 years, so I want to thank you for everything that you've done and the communication and the collaboration to help move education forward in the county. So on behalf of San Benito County Office of Ed, we're really excited to team with Probation, Chief Baran, as we move forward to bring a literacy initiative countywide. I did explain it a little bit at our intergovernmental meeting, so both Supervisor Patello and Munzer have heard a little bit about this, but it is a technology app that will allow literacy to be in every home across San Benito County. And so we've got partners that will pull together as we continue to roll this out. So unique to this is that there's a lot of research as we move forward to help really close the gap with literacy. And what it's called is a 30 million word gap. So in San Benito County alone, the new research that came out, we have 17% of our children come from impoverished homes, and it may be higher than that. So when that happens, there's a gap in access of literacy content for children when they start either transitional kinder or kinder, and our charge is to close that gap. And I'll let Chief Baran talk about why probation is behind that, and then we'll entertain any questions from. There's a lot I can say. I won't go in real depth, but we're really excited about bringing the literacy initiative. And I know Margie was at the literacy collaborative that we invited the community to come and attend. And it's really exciting to actually see the program itself and what it can do for San Benito County and for our children.
Hello, all. Ted Baran, Chief Probation Officer. A number of months ago, Ms. Lamonto approached me with an idea about this Footsteps to Brilliance program and said, is this something that we could support in the probation department somehow? And she dragged me to a presentation. I was there, and I listened to this guy talk, and this idea struck me. And it was an idea that was similar to Chairman Rivas's thought about literacy. So I've been in probation for over 20 years, and I've worked with just about every type of person you can work with, every ethnic group, every socioeconomic group. And one thing that I know is that when you're trying to change people's lives and change their outlook, there's three ways to do that in my experience, and that's changing the people, the people that they meet, the places they've been, and the books that they read. By increasing literacy throughout a population, adult, juvenile, everywhere, you actually increase avenues and opportunities for people to gain insight into how to change their behavior and lead productive lives. So looking at that and having this opportunity to help support this effort throughout the county not only benefits the people in my system, in the probation system, the criminal justice system, but the county as a whole. And I'm just honored to have been approached to actually help support this in some small way.
Thank you, Ted. Any other comments?
We probably should have reported that out of intergovernmental, because I remember how excited Ms. Lamato was when she was describing the program and the effects that it will have on literacy and also with the crime rate and giving these kids an opportunity to kind of have a better result as they move on in life. There's some statistics, though. Would you share a few of them, Ms. Lamato, please?
Well, if you're looking at the 30 million word gap, which is consistent, and the level of poverty within homes with children across San Benito County, it's significant. So that means if their families can't afford books, literacy is not happening. So San Benito County Office of Ed, we're focusing on the birth to 3-year-old, and then our districts will focus on 4-year-old and on. So if we can close that gap, once they get to 3rd grade, if they're not literate at that point, it's nearly impossible to catch up. And so if our goal is to make sure that all students are literate by the time they're in 3rd grade, then from that point on, they'll be able to, the world is at hand, right? And so when that gap happens, it's a continuous struggle for a student. They drop out. Crime rate can go up. There's all of these statistics that go along with when a child struggles and what that historical view is throughout their educational career. And our job is to stop that by third grade. And so we're really excited. The library are partners in this, the City of Hollister, probation, hopefully after today, county supervisors, the Community Foundation. I've been very fortunate that this has been well received, and a lot of partners to really come up with a strategic plan that's going to meet the needs of our entire county. And then our districts are also, we had at the Literacy Collaborative, we had 3 superintendents get up and speak about the idea of all of us coming together. And this is going to take everybody. It's just not the educational world, it's the community. It's how do we think differently to close that gap. And so when you think of 17% of our homes where children live being in a poverty level, we've got to find a way to support them.
Any other questions, comments?
Just a comment. I want to thank you for being here. When I went to that presentation, I asked, what can we do as a county to support you? And this was the step, is to do the resolution to show our support. So I'm hoping that we do get support. And it's another tool. I read something the other day, and I know you as parents, if your parents or grandparents will appreciate that there's no app to replace the lap. You still want to read to your children. You still want to open a book. You still want to hold them. But this is another tool. Another tool that other children who don't benefit from that can have access to, and to families. So I thank you for hearing them, and I think this is a great step. So
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay. This time, I'll open it to the public for comment. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for decision.
I will make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 23, Mr. Dela Cruz.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
Don't go too far, Ted. Okay.
Mr. Chair, if it's okay, I'd like to include 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, and 31 all in one.
Okay.
Actually, not 28, but the rest all in one.
Okay.
And that is that at the CSAC conference, I had a lot of discussion with construction companies, with consultants, and other supervisors. And bottom line is that if we were to wait and see if the price of a jail will go down, the price to construct a jail, per square foot, won't exist. Actually, it'll continue to rise. And I know we have on 31. That's one of the discussions that we're going to talk about, the jail expansion. And so the best option is really let's move forward today instead of waiting down the road because it'll be more expensive. And the second part of that question is how do we finance it currently? And I feel that the 109, AB 109 funding, some of those funding should be used for the jail expansion. So, Chief, you're here today. I'm sorry. You're the one. I'm putting you on the spot. We don't have our DA here or our judge here or our sheriff here. But as a member of the Board of Supervisors, and I know that we're going to need to find $5 million down the road, we need your support. We need your group's organization support to help us finance that $5 million gap that we now need to finance the jail expansion. And if we were to wait, that cost would just increase. It'll escalate. So we need to play ball together. We need to join our collaboration and be partners in the expansion of the jail because it is hard to go to the public and ask them to finance $5 million for jail expansion that the state has given us $15+ million. So the other dollars have to be matched locally. And AB 109, I believe, it meets that criteria that we use that money for this expansion. So that's why I've asked Mr. Chair to pull those items so I can have a frank discussion with you. Unfortunately, the sheriff or the DA is not here, which I would have loved to have a frank discussion with them too. I'm just registering my my views on the issue. I know you're the member of the voting group that allocates those dollars, and I see here that you're spending money for furniture, for a new SUV, for other et cetera items. But I just feel that we need to maybe refocus some of that money back into the jail expanding budget.
Mr. Chairman, before the chief speaks, this was specifically discussed at the facilities meeting yesterday with our staff, and just for the record, the the committee has been setting aside some AB 109 monies towards the jail expansion. And they've been, I think the cooperation and the partnership has been, it's there. And we're depend on more of that effort going forward. And the financing of the $5 million is something that we'll have to work on. One of the ideas I also want to make sure we incorporate, as I talked earlier about the impact fees, part of the public safety impact fees probably should go to financing the jail. Now, we still will need the 109 monies and maybe a little bit more to finance a bond. But we have to take advantage of this opportunity that the state has provided, our small county to do the jail expansion. We'll never get that again. So, the facilities committee with staff has been, setting those timelines so we get that project going. And we're on track from what we were given the report from yesterday. And I think we'll have to continue to work with the chief and the rest of the committee on the 109 funds to make sure we don't have any gap in funding the project. I don't know if there's anything more to add from us, but that's where it's at.
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Barrios.
Thank you so much. Supervisor De La Cruz, while I appreciate your concern, I think, it's valid, and we are going to be working through that as time goes on. What I want to say about this is that the Community Corrections Partnership I've been on it since its inception back in 2011, I believe, and it's made up of all the stakeholders, the district attorney, the sheriff, the police chief, our probation chief, Health and Human Services, representatives from the county, behavioral health, our judge, and all of those folks come together in a room to discuss how this money is to be spent. These requests that are being made here, some of them are tied to AB 109 funds and some of them may not be, but we cannot lose sight of the day-to-day operations. These are greatly needed for just doing our day-to-day operations. So I will support them in every way that I can, keeping in mind that in the future we do have to be cognizant of the fact that we need more money. AB 109 has put money aside every single year for the jail expansion and probably will continue to do so. Will it have to do more? Possibly. But for now, these are very much needed items that we need to move forward with so that we can continue to provide the services that we have to on a daily basis. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any other additional comments? Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I have not served on either the facility committee or on the committee that oversees the AB 109 funds, I speak with concerns because, as we know, when the courthouse that was supposed to have been done all on state money was built and they were ready to open, they came to us and say, "Oh, by the way, you need to pay X amount of money more." So I thank Supervisor De La Cruz for bringing this to the forefront, because I think we do need to figure out how, if we have a $5 million gap in the building of the jail expansion, that has to be addressed. And if it can be addressed through AB 109, then that would be a great way of going about addressing it. So, thank you.
At this time, I'll open up to the public for comments, questions. See none, I'll bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor De La Cruz.
Thank you. And I'll close my remarks. I appreciate, thank you, Supervisor Barrios, for that information. Supervisor Botello, thank you. Supervisor Munzer, I really do appreciate. Thank you, Chief. I'm happy that there's some money set aside, but I honestly believe that we need to kind of continue that discussion and ask for more allocation than what's already been budgeted, because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the taxpayers who are going to have to pick up that cost. And if we do have a guaranteed stream of money on AB 109, let's become partners of that jail. Thank you very much. On that note, Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve all the items that I pulled out.
So it was items 23, 24, 25.
I will second.
And 31. So a motion is second. And then for the question, thank you, Chief. Certainly a can of worms is open, and we'll begin this discussion in 2017. So So certainly, thank you for that. And so all those in favor of those
Aye.
4 items?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I believe it was also 26.
And 26,
And
yes.
26.
That was
And
included.
26.
Yep.
Yeah, he stopped at 23.
23, 24, 25, 26, and it was 31. All right. So for our final item of consent this morning, we will move to item 28, pulled by Supervisor Botello and Supervisor Munzer. And
Okay.
it's Mr. Barnes, I believe.
Let me go first. Who are we talking to? So, I have two concerns with this item. Supervisor De La Cruz and I have served on the, I've served on the Vets Parks Commission for the past 6 years, and I do not remember this coming before the committee in a detailed manner. So I feel that it needs to be vetted by the Parks and Rec Commission first, since it's part of the park. Two, I'm concerned about the workload for the RMA staff in getting these projects done. We have so many projects out there; they don't seem to be getting done, and I'm just concerned about going forward with another project. So that is kind of my concern. I at this point I would make the motion. I mean, I'm not making the motion now, but I would make the motion to continue this. Would be my recommendation, as opposed to acting on it today.
Sure, I understand. The thought, I apologize that this hasn't come to the Vets Commission first. The thought was that getting this consultant under contract, and one of the first tasks would be to come meet with or present at the Vets Park Commission to get some of your ideas and explain some of our ideas, and then obviously come back with designs, for your review, approval, what have you, as well as at the board here. There's no real funding deadlines. There's no anything on this that requires us to do it right now. The property does have some maintenance issues, security issues. It has a lot of ADA issues. That's just one of the reasons we wanted to get moving on it at some point, sooner than later, was just to, minimize some of the liability we have out there and ongoing costs that we have out there. But however you want to proceed, we can adapt to that.
And Supervisor Botello has a comment.
Yeah, when I read this, I had some concerns, and I kind of want to go one step further than Supervisor Munzer. I would think if we were to spend $53,000 on a consultant to do design, what I seen in the background information is just stuff you don't need a consultant for. It's take the $53,000 and fix the ADA issues that we may have. Go to Century 21 or for security, put a couple motion detectors in there and call it good. And if there's some maintenance program, long-standing maintenance issues, fix it, and don't hire a consultant. Just get whoever needs to do the work. I just don't understand the consultant thing.
This is something, alluding to Supervisor Munzer's workload issue, this is something in the past where I probably would have designed it myself. But the issues here, we need to move walls, we need to move plumbing fixtures to accomplish the ADA compliance aspects. It's a very comprehensive issue out there. It's nearly every door, it's every fixture, it's a lot of things. There's some steps, there's some other access issues. And as far as security, it's more than just an alarm. It's the actual windows that are used, very easy to break into, the locks. I mean, it's just, this is a very comprehensive renovation to address these issues. Unfortunately, it's not a simple, a little bit here, a little bit there, because otherwise you're right. I would just go in and just replace things. But walls need to move, doors need to be changed, windows need to be changed, that sort of thing. To fully address it all. Walls that need to be moved. I don't know. $53,000 doesn't do 1 ounce of work. After you get the design, then you got to, come up with more money to. And Supervisor De La Cruz expressed a concern about, where we get, this funding
ongoing for these parks. We just have to do some of it ourselves and use some common sense and prioritize. If ADA is the priority, hey, Mr. Contractor, that wall, that door needs to be widened, and that one as well.
Just
And
the
he
bidding
can build
process,
it.
though, I can't bid it by talking to somebody, unfortunately. We need plans that can be bid, that need to be plan checked and approved and bid out. There is an extra cost in here that would only be tapped. So there's almost, I should elaborate, there's almost two phases here. The first phase is to look at the feasibility of actually being able to add on to the building with the budget we have. The concern is by making the bathrooms fully ADA accessible, we're going to lose the small meeting room that the Scouts and other organizations use on the evenings. To recover that space, we were going to look at adding on to the building, but I don't know if we have the budget for it. So there's an extra task in the contract that's included in that full amount, but not the consultant wouldn't use it unless we gave them authorization. If we can afford to do the addition, then we would greenlight some of those additional funds to perform that extra work. So there's some work at the beginning to see if we can afford the addition, and then we would approve some additional funds that are included in that total to actually do the remainder of the construction documents. I don't have the contract in front of me. I believe it was about $5,000 in that neighborhood. That's optional.
I think I'm going to support Supervisor Munzer, at least have it go back to the Parks Commission and have it a little bit, fretted out a little, and details and see if that's the cost that we got to go with, because I didn't see a competitive bidding process either in the staff report. And so I think we should continue this item and let it go to the commission and recommendations from there. Thank you.
Okay. So what is, if we do go ahead and have a continuance on this item, what are the impacts? Are there any impacts for staff?
The only minor impact is that we have the reservation calendar blocked out for the anticipated construction schedule. We would just have to move that. That's really the only minor thing.
At this time, I'll open up to the public for comments.
Thank you. Valerie Eglin, San Juan. I'm also on the Parks Commission for District 2, and we have not had a meeting now or essential staff for maybe 6 months. Gallagher, who is in charge of the Vets Park on the commission, he is not going to be available in January. In fact, we're not able to contact him. So getting the group together, I believe that our Parks and Rec has diminished in it's afraid, not afraid, what am I saying? The importance of it has been diminished. And so the people who are associated on the Parks and Rec Commission don't feel like the county is listening or that we're essential for anything. And so we've tried to keep an ear on the Planning Commission, going and looking at projects that are being presented to keep our eye on parks issues that might be coming up that need to be pinpointed. So it would be extremely important to really get a handle on that in January. My understanding is that we do not have essential staff for January, and it won't be a sanctioned meeting, but that we will have an informal meeting. So what can be brought to it from your concerns, I don't know. All the procedures, just as has been mentioned, that it's not just the $52,000. It's going through thousands of procedures to wade through to get some real work done. And with the Parks and Rec, we are in that cog, in that wheel. So that's just a statement. Any question?
Well, we can't field questions, but thank you for your comments.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Mr. Chair, my comment is the commission that we are discussing is not the Parks and Rec Commission in this case. It is the Vets Parks Commission, which by legislation is tasked with managing the Vets Park. Although I appreciate what was said about the Parks and Rec Commission, it does not pertain to this, but my understanding is staff is trying to put together a meeting for January, and I've talked with the chair, and it looks like there will be a committee. But again, I want to emphasize, it's not the Park and Rec Commission that we are talking about in this instance. It's the Vets Park Commission, which is different.
So, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, so staff has been tasked by the CAO once before, a few months ago, to organize a Parks and Rec Commission, and we were not able to get a quorum. That's that instance. Previous to that, there were a couple of other instances where we were not able to get a quorum, and I know that there were issues about the membership and so on and so forth that prevented that from happening. We have, however, been in contact with Mr. Pidd, and I am working with him, and I spoke with the CAO. I'm going to staff the Parks and Rec Commission until we identify the appropriate scope of what we need to do with regard to the planning of the parks and management of the parks. We'll have a meeting organized in January, a formal Parks and Recs Commission meeting. But as you all well know, we have had to make priority of many other different projects, and that's not to diminish or to say that Parks and Rec is any less important, but this project does not really apply to the Parks and Rec Commission. This is a Vets Commission issue specifically. The question of parks and the management of it, and that's a completely separate matter, separate question, and we've made every effort to work with them about that.
Thank you, okay. Mr. Valdez. At this time, we'll take any members of the public for additional comments.
Good morning again, Marty Richard from Hollister. I'd like to just take a moment for the public to talk to the chair, to the public, about using this as a perfect example of something I face all the time when I am approached by people who say, well, why do you push to change this or that? Can't we just leave everything the way it's always been here? You know, and typically that's somebody who's lived here a long time who says, well, I don't know. We always were able to manage in 1951. This is a perfect example. We are not in control of our own fate. The American Disabilities Act didn't exist in 1951. So you didn't have to have a bathroom that was designed to provide equal access to someone with a disability in 1951. And you know, this kind of applies to everything in California, and it applies to our diesel-driven vehicles who often have to go down and have the motor destroyed because that's the wrong kind of diesel motor, and it applies to everything we do. So just for the public's gratification, and this is a perfect example, absolutely perfect. We can't leave things the way they were because they weren't good enough. The rules have changed. Our way of living has changed. The way we treat different people has changed. The public access requirements have changed. Everything changes. And the one thing we can count on is nothing gets less expensive. Okay? Everything gets more expensive. And if you have a facility and you have to upgrade it or modernize it or whatever, you're going to pay a lot more money. So for those of you who keep saying, why don't we just leave things the way they've always been, this is a perfect example. We're not going to do it. We're going to provide access to people with disabilities, and it's going to be expensive. Whether we do it with a consultant or we don't use a consultant doesn't make any difference. I can assure you it's going to be a bunch of money. And this goes back to the same issues you discussed about trying to enlarge the jail and AB 109 and trying to find a $5 million bridge somewhere. So I thank you for your time, and I hope the people who who constantly get on my case about why I won't leave things the way they were in 1953 when they were so happy with it, understand now why it can't be that way. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Marty. Any other additional comments from the board?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could, Adam, I have some questions. How often does the Bertha Briggs building get used by the community?
It's used nearly every night of the week by the scouting organizations, and then it's pretty much solid every weekend year-round.
And that's what I thought, because I have also been, as a family, you know, our family has rented it before, and it's essential to have a place like that. And it is really run down. It's been there for a long time. It does need help. I want to support this because I think this is an essential building for the community to use. Did we go through the process, the RFP process, to be able to get the lowest bidder for the architect?
For consultant services, where we go qualifications based, it's not a dollar amount. Dollar amount is required for the construction or purchasing. Services are based on qualifications. This being a smaller contract was sourced locally. One of our local consultants who has experience on that was selected to do this, you know, relatively small project.
Right, and he does have a very good reputation in the county, has done a lot of work for different organizations, the city, the county, maybe even the state. So I'm going to support this because I know how essential this building is, and if we don't start working on it now, I mean, this is a year-long contract. This is, right? This is from December 13th, 16 to December 13th, 17. So that means that there's going to be a lot of work put into this so that at the end of this period, we're going to have a product that we can actually go out and get a bid on to get going on the project. So
that's great.
I'm going to support it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And thank you. And so at this time, you know, I have no problem supporting this as well, you know, but I do want to respect the wishes of the board. If they, you know, if they would like this pushed back to another meeting or two, I have no issue with that, you know, especially if there's a question about the process regarding this item. So, Supervisor?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, as the chair of the Vets Commission, I would highly request that my fellow supervisors afford the Vets Commission to vent it out.
Okay. So with that, I think that we will have a majority of the board in favor of going ahead, moving forward and continuing this item. Okay. Is that okay with the rest of the board? I don't think that requires a formal motion. Okay.
So move.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to move this item. Can we do it to a date certain? I mean, what's it, maybe?
March 1st, Mr. Chair.
March 1st?
Yeah, because
government does move slow.
I know. Our next meeting is going to be February 1st.
I will compromise that. February. Let's get this moving.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, let's do February. At least a minimum of February. Is that okay with the rest of the board? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to go ahead and
okay.
to respect the wishes of
And
the
5-0.
request.
Okay.
Thank you.
So at 11:15, we're finally done with the business of the board and consent. So we will move on to our regular agenda items. We'll begin with item 33, which is coming from from myself. And so I'll turn it over to staff. I do have some comments. I made some comments again in January at the State of the County address related to this item.
Yes. As you mentioned, this item was placed on the board's agenda at the request of Supervisor Rivas. Cesar Chavez Day is a holiday that was currently provided to State of California employees, and there has been a desire of many people within to recognize this holiday in San Benito County. This agenda item is broken down into two components. Due to the Milius-Myers-Brown Act, the board cannot unilaterally grant a holiday to represented employees. So this action would direct that negotiations be brought to the bargaining units about whether this holiday should be recognized with the individual bargaining units. The second part of this agenda item, if the board should so desire, would be a resolution that, if adopted, would grant the holiday to unrepresented employees in the county. And that would be effective after the board's adoption of that resolution. So I present it for any questions that the board may have.
Okay. Are there any questions of any member of the board at this time?
Mr. Chair, I do have some questions, but I'm going to refer to after public session.
Okay.
I'll wait too.
Okay. So at this time, I will open up to public comment. Mr. Richmond.
Marty Richmond again. I think a Cesar Chavez holiday would be perfectly appropriate. I notice the state of California, it's already a holiday. Many of our surrounding counties, as near as I can tell, it's a little hard when I pull up the holiday schedule because many times the court schedule comes up, and so that kind of confuses things because the court schedules are often on the state schedule, so it gets a little strange. I notice moving it around. The question, I have two suggestions. One is my research, and I'm sure staff will correct me if I'm wrong, shows that we have 2 floating holidays. I would hope that one of those floating holidays would be designated for a date certain as the Cesar Chavez holiday. That's one thing. The second thing is I do notice that at the state level it is on the 31st, which is an anniversary of Mr. Chavez's birthday. But if it falls on a Sunday, then it's celebrated on a Monday. So it gets pretty complicated. I think if possible, without disturbing too many things, I think we would be better off if we made it something like the last Monday in March. And the reason I say that is Monday holidays for, if first of all, we would not grant an extra holiday, so it wouldn't be an extra cost if we take a floating holiday, number one. Monday holidays for birthday celebrations are common in the federal law. Martin Luther King being on a Monday, President's Day being on a Monday, which used to be Washington's birthday, and others. So that would fit. That would give a 3-day weekend. I think it's a little more efficient. I think also that it's my opinion that I think employees appreciate a 3-day weekend more because that gives them a day to travel somewhere if they want to do so. And so I think that would be appropriate, and you would know always when it falls. It's also it just so happens that because it's the end of March sometime, it falls between like the biggest period in the work calendar when there is no holiday, which is between President's Day in February and the end of May, which is what, Memorial Day? Mm-hmm. So that's one of the longest periods without a holiday. So it falls right in there. And I think it's appropriate. This is has a history. We can still argue about whether it's still an ag county, and we will. But it certainly has a history as an agriculture county and directly involving Mr. Chavez and his movement, and like other movements in the nation, whether it be union movements or other movements, I think they deserve to be recognized. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments, Marty. Any additional comments, members of the public? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. Questions, comments? Supervisor Botello?
Okay. All due respect to our chairman. Because I know this is something that's dear to your heart.
It is dear to my heart.
And I mean that in all sincerity. But I'm going to be opposed to this. Another holiday, a day off. And simply because it's closing the offices to the public one more day, paying people for a day of not working. And, you know, every time we close, our work falls behind. And I think there's enough holidays out there already. I'm not going to get too much into the contributions of Cesar Chavez and the labor movement and all that, but we already recognize labor on Labor Day. And it's not us and them, it's us. But I certainly, from the public standpoint, every day that the offices close is an inconvenience to the people that we're serving, the people that are paying the fees, paying the taxes, and I think we could ill afford it. So from the practical standpoint, I think just for that, I'm going to be opposed to this. I think we need to keep our offices open more. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. And, although I disagree with you, I have tremendous respect for you, and I absolutely appreciate your opinion. That's part of this process. And so I brought this item forward, obviously, because this is a very important topic for me. And I believe that now more than ever we should honor our county's history and give this day the recognition it deserves right here in San Benito County. Many local residents don't have a clue or an idea that San Benito County was at the epicenter of this historic civil rights movement. Right here in our county, farm workers, my family included, my grandfather, I've said it many times up here on the dais, he immigrated here in the late 50s, settled here in San Benito County and worked at Almadén Vineyards just down the street or just down the road in District 4. But right here in our county, farm workers, they fought in the 60s and 70s to earn basic human rights that were afforded to others, but not to them, not farm workers. With the encouragement and leadership from Cesar Chavez, local farm workers worked together to win equality in the workplace. These are basic rights that we take for granted. Basic rights such as workplace breaks, meal times, vacation and sick pay, protection from pesticides, drinking water on the job, and the end of the short-handled hoe that caused so many of back injuries to farm workers. The list goes on. And we should, in my opinion, the reason I'm advocating for this and pushing this is that we need to honor this history and not run from it. We should talk about our shared history and the many civil rights accomplishments that were achieved right here in our own county. We should try not to bury it. This is a rich history. It is a history that we should all be very proud of. This is about more than just Mr. Chavez. This is about honoring the history and the movement that built this county. And it's about honoring the many men and women who suffered injustices but fought to make our society right here in San Benito County more equal. Now, this is also about sending a message to the farm worker community and those that still work in agriculture that you matter and that your work matters. The negativity of the recent election is another reason why we should come together to recognize the great accomplishments of our local farm workers and our local farmers, because it really was a collective victory in the 60s, in the 70s and forward. Farmers in this community have provided great jobs and healthy work environments for generations. They've helped to make this community what it is. And agriculture certainly is the foundation of who we are as a county, and it is the driving force behind our local economy. It has been for decades. And I think that we need to do the right thing as a board. We need to celebrate this holiday like other counties have done, like our neighbors to the north in Santa Clara. Since 2002, the County of Santa Clara gives all of their workers the day off and asks them to consider volunteering their time on Cesar Chavez Day to give back to the community. Now, I understand that many workers do volunteer on this day. It's a great tradition we should start right here in San Benito, one of the epicenters of the farm worker movement. And so with that, I'm certainly in favor of this. I'd like to see this accomplished because this is part of who we are as a county. And I think that it's time that we took a leadership role to acknowledge this and to provide our local, our county workers the opportunity to celebrate this day and encourage them to volunteer on this day. Give back. Go volunteer for a local nonprofit here in town. Volunteer at local schools. But this is certainly something that I would like to see get accomplished this morning. Supervisor Barrios?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I couldn't agree with you more. I didn't realize this, but your grandfather was probably part of Almadén Vineyards, as my father was back in the early 70s, and my father was part of that movement. My brother Mike was a young boy or young man, and he joined forces with Teatro Campesino to bring those equalities back. I was a part of those inequalities. I worked, in the fields like a lot of people did, and the orchards, and there were no bathrooms. We were young girls with no place to go. And my mother had to struggle to figure out a way to keep us protected and safe. And I worked with a short hoe, and that was tough. There was no shade, no water. You just showed up for work, did your job, got paid, and that was the end of it. Somebody else benefited from your work. Not that we didn't get paid, but it certainly was unfair. So I will support this because I think that you're right. This is rich in our own history. It's in our own backyard, and we should honor it and we should support it. So thank you.
Mr. Chair, first of all, I'd like to thank all the farm owners that allowed my family and myself to work in the fields. My dad and my mom also worked at Dam Winery. In fact, my dad put in 33 years at Dam Winery, and when I was a kid, I saw Cesar Chavez firsthand on the fields, on the battleground. So I can tell you the struggles that we went through for the movements that Cesar Chavez did in our behalf, in the community's behalf. I'm 100%. I think we need to recognize the efforts that he did to our community, especially the fact that our chairperson is correct. There's a lot of rich history in San Bernardino County on that movement, and our family benefit from it a lot. The only thing that I cannot support at the moment is one, we need to recognize the Cesar Chavez as a holiday, but two, the county employees need to give up a holiday, a floating day or something. We have to do a trade-off. And I would encourage that momentum. And I think if we can do it, I'm 100% behind the idea of making Cesar Chavez a holiday for San Bernardino County. And the final thing, Mr. Chair, and this is my view just, over the last 30, 40 years, is that when you try to implement a state Cesar Chavez holiday and it's a day off for state employees, in reality, farm workers should really get that day paid. They should really be out, celebrating his day, not the state employees. That's my perspective. Because I would have been the one who would have benefited if the state would have said, okay, all farm workers will have that day paid. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor. I should note that the item basically will recognize Chavez as a county holiday, but we direct negotiators to go back. And so we'll certainly, this is an item that will return, it sounds like, to fill in the details. But this is certainly very important.
Yes.
First step. Any other questions or comments from members of the board? If not, I'll certainly provide a motion, and that is to direct the negotiators to approach the county's bargaining units regarding the establishment of a San Bernardino County holiday entitled Cesar Chavez Day in recognition of the contributions and achievements of farm labor and civil rights icon Cesar Chavez, and adopt Resolution 2016-100, granting Cesar Chavez Day to unrepresented employees.
I second your motion, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, can I ask for a friendly amendment to the motion?
Absolutely.
That 3 or 4, that if the unions do not wish to give up one of their holidays, then that item will be brought back to the board.
Yes, then we will, Mr. CAO.
Well, yeah, but so the way it's written right now, it's not giving up a holiday for the unrepresented employees. So that would be something that we would have to, if that's the direction of the board, we would have to go through the process. And I would recommend holding off then granting, or that portion of the recommendation for unrepresented employees until we go through the process.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation.
Supervisor? Is that what you would like to see done?
Yeah. I just, it's a two-part thing. Is one, recognizing his efforts, make it a special moment. And two, having the rank and file and every other employee have to give up a holiday, because it has to be a fiscal neutral notion here. And if we can do that, then I'm good.
I think that you could direct us to go forth and speak with the negotiators and direct us to bring back a resolution that makes that change for the unrepresented employees, if that would be acceptable to the board.
That is, I assumed reading the item that what was going to be done behind, in directing the our negotiating team to move forward.
Yep.
Okay. So with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-1. Moving on to item 34. This is out of our Resource Management Agency. Mr. Barnes.
Mr. Chairman, good morning. Yes, it's still morning. Good morning again. We don't have a formal presentation on this. I do have Adam here to answer questions if there are any, but basically this is a excuse me, a request to advance the purchase of 2 parcels on the cul-de-sac that is behind the Health and Human Services and Behavioral Health buildings out where the Go Kids property used to be, for the purpose of relocating the behavioral health office into a new building that would ultimately be designed and built there. This is not for the construction of the building at this point, simply the acquisition of the two parcels. As we did with the Homeless Services Center, this is a mitigated negative declaration under CEQA, and we're asking that the board approve the CEQA finding and the purchase of the property. Questions?
Questions from members of the board?
Just a comment, Mr. Chair, if I could. This has been a long time coming. Very necessary that we move forward with it. And there are timelines that I know behavioral health has to deal with monies that we should have probably spent a long time ago in moving forward with the facility. So I will certainly support it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any other questions, comments from members of the board? Okay, this time open up to members of the public. Questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for a decision.
I will make a motion, Mr. Chair, to approve resolution number 2016-101.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, moving on to item 35. This is out of the County Administrative Office. Looks like we have Mr. Valdez.
We do. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you have in front of you the resolution adopting the meeting schedule and agenda review schedule for the board in 2017. I just want to point out that the agenda review schedule is subject to change as it moves throughout the year. There are times when, because of staffing issues or because of other items that become a priority, we have to move the agenda review schedule itself. But I just want to make really clear that in 2017, after discussing the issue with the CAO and the board, we're going to make a very concerted effort to make sure we get our agendas published at the very latest on Wednesdays, preferably on Tuesdays. And we're going to try and see what the options are after we conduct a comprehensive analysis of the items and the schedule as it's been working, and bring that back to the board to see if there are any other changes that can and should be made to the review schedule as well as the meeting schedule. I know that there are some of you on the board who may have expressed that there was an issue with regard to getting the agenda out in a much more timely manner. We have the system now to do it. However, the unintended consequence of that is that we have much more work that we're able to bring on, as I'm sure County Council will attest to these days. So we're going to manage that as efficiently as we possibly can, and it's before you for your review, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay. Any questions, members of the board?
A comment, Mr. Chair. We will have timelines, but we also have to be cognizant of the fact that we have to be flexible as well. There are things, as you well know, in government that sometimes things come up. I don't think department heads intentionally leave things out for the last minute, but some things do come up at the last minute that do have timelines. And as long as we can work through those and allow those things to happen under certain circumstances, I think it's great that you will want to put the agenda out a little earlier.
Yeah, and Supervisor Barrios, the idea is we want to get the agenda as we have it posted on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. If there are supplementals, and Los Angeles County does this as a course of their general business, they regularly issue a supplemental on Friday afternoons for the items that do come up later on. So we're going to try and do that as well to accommodate a little bit more regularity in the issuance of the agenda. But we have to remain flexible because there are items that are urgent that come up. Board members come in, they want to have something put on. It's of an urgent matter, or if it's a legal issue that has to be placed, we want to be flexible enough to accommodate that.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor.
I guess
Supervisor Patella?
Yeah, I think I had one here when I was looking at this last night. In July, we don't have any board meetings, is there? Wait, did I see that right?
That is correct, Mr. Botello.
Yeah, okay, that's
we have no
my
board
memory.
meetings.
And, just, I think in the past we've always had at least one board meeting in July. And, I just made a comment about, in reasoning of my lack of support for the Cesar Chavez Day as being closed to the public. And that seems like a long period of time if there's any business that the public has with the Board of Supervisors to wait from June, which we're very busy with the budget, all the way to August. Is that something that we want to have?
Mr. Chair, if I may add to that. So in light of next year's calendar, every year administration normally meets with the potential incoming chair. In this case, it was with the vice chair, Supervisor Jaime de la Cruz. And we went through next year's agenda and tried to accommodate all of the goings on. And in particular, as you noticed, the first 6 months are pretty full with 3 meetings a month with either a board retreat, special board meeting for going through the budget process, and as well as in January having the swearing in, as well as the moving forward with selecting committees and so forth on the 10th. In regards to July, as this next year, it looks like there's going to be a lot more discussion with regards to marijuana at the federal level and the state level. We've been a part of NACO, and so that month, NACO will be going on the last part, which we had this year in the calendar of kind of the last week. So there's going to be the meetings as well as travel. So we have the latter part of the calendar in May. We have NACO Western Conference. We have CSAC Conference in May. We also have July, the NACO Annual Conference. And then we also have RCRC in September, as well as the CSAC Annual Conference in November. So there's been a looking at strategically the accommodating of all of these committees and all of these different meetings that we have obligation to attend. So again, this was just going to be open to the discussion of your board, and it's up to your board if you wish to move forward with not having a meeting in July, or if we do, we would recommend having it probably the July 18th meeting to accommodate the NACO attendance. So that's entirely up to the board, and I don't know if Supervisor Jaime de la Cruz would like to add any further comment with that, but that's correct, Mr. Anthony Botello.
I would highly recommend that we schedule a meeting on July 18th or something. It's just too long not to have a board meeting. And, the world wouldn't come to an end if the NACO representative is not here. Of course, that would be the chair, but I think we could handle it even if he happens to miss a meeting. But it's just too long to let things go.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Let me offer a suggestion. See if I can get your support. How about if we do it on July 1st Board of Supervisors meeting?
Saturday?
That's a Tuesday. I'm sorry, August 1st. I apologize. Is that still too far, Supervisor Botello?
I think so. You got 2 meetings in August, and
we have 3 meetings in August.
You would have 3 at that point.
Okay. All right. Then we'll just do the 18th. Then we're okay with that. We'll do the 18th.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments, members of the board?
I have a comment, Mr. Chair. I like the fact that you can have a whole month off. I'm not going to be here, but it makes it if somebody wants to travel, wants to be, do things with their family. If you have meetings in that month, you either have to stay and study and prepare, as well as our staff, not just the Board of Supervisors. And it gives everybody an opportunity to have a lull in the year-long process of working so hard and doing so much in preparation. So I will support not having, even though I'm not going to be here, I think it would be beneficial. Everybody needs some time off, some time to recharge and not be so pressed with work. And that's something I highly encourage. Keeps us all
Doggone it,
healthy.
Supervisor Barrios. Didn't we talk this morning when you agreed with everything I...
Not this one.
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I just did an eye contact with our new incoming supervisor district, and he supported Margie's position. So I'm going to support Margie's position, and I will ask the board to support me in having July blank.
And I do recommend that we have our supervisor-elect, and he may want to chime in. He'll be here sitting in my place, so he may have a different view on this whole thing, even though he may not have a say yet. So
he's happy. He wants July blank.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Is the pay the same by not working? You know, I just, again, we used to have 3 meetings a month. And then now it's down to 2. The Planning Commission only meets once a month now, and it causes a backload on stuff that needs to get done. And we'll be here probably late today because it's a lighter schedule for December, and we're trying to get things accomplished. And you still have 2 weeks on both ends of that, the 18th to travel. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel I'm paid a lot of money to be a supervisor and get things done, and not having anything in July, it's hard to get things done. Thank you. And that's my sentiments. If I don't have support, I don't have support.
Let's move on. Let's move on.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? I really don't have an opinion. You put a meeting on the calendar, I'll be here. So, whether it's in
well,
July,
I'm going to make a motion to approve the calendar with the addition of the...
let me open up to public comment. So any members of the public wish to comment on this item? On the Board of Supervisors calendar for 2017? All right.
I'll
Bring it
make
back to the board.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the calendar with the addition of a Board of Supervisors meeting on July 18th.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. No.
Motion carries 3-2.
Sorry.
Okay, moving on.
What a decisive day.
You voted to have a...
I voted for.
Okay.
So, staff's got direction? You got, okay.
Oh, July 18th.
July 18th.
July 18th. Supervisor Patel will be providing breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
I love it.
Probably so. I'd be happy to. I'll remember that.
I won't let you forget it. All right. So,
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think, and does that include all the agenda review and deadline schedule?
Yeah, that's
so
part of the motion.
Incorporated.
And
I'm sure staff will be working with the chair on that.
Yeah, and for clarity, that's really more for internal use, with county council, with department heads, knowing the dates to turn in information. They're basically milestone dates internally. And again, publishing it as soon as we can. Again, I want to make sure the public is aware of this as well as the board. You do have access, especially the board has access to this information through the portal, so they can actually look and see what's going on in advance. But our main goal is to make sure it's published on Tuesday, latest Wednesday, with a supplemental on Friday if we have to for emergency items.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. CAO. Moving on to item 36. I'll look to our CAO. This is Receive Fire Services Update. How long do we anticipate this item to last?
This shouldn't last too long. It should only be a 5 to 10 minute item. And we have Kevin O'Neill here. He's been requested to move forward with this particular item through my office.
With item 36.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So as CAO Espinoza stated, he appointed me to kind of take the lead on this item in terms of creating an RFP to seek a consultant to do some research for us. So I'll give you a little history first. We entered into our current fire protection contract with City of Hollister in 2013. It was renewed again in 2015 and is set to expire in September of 2018. The current contract does state that all the parties, San Juan Bautista, County of San Benito, and City of Hollister, would continue to evaluate the feasibility of a joint countywide consolidated fire department through either a JPA or a district. The City of San Juan Bautista and the county have passed resolutions supporting that just recently in a matter of a month or two ago. The City of Hollister currently has not. Along with the resolutions that the county and the city of San Juan passed came a funding stream to pay for a consultant to do a feasibility study for us. The City of Hollister, from what we've been able to gather, held off on supporting this because they wanted to know what their share of the cost of the RFP was going to be. In the Fire Protection Committee meeting, it was decided that the split would be 40% the county, 40% for the City of Hollister, and then 20% for the City of San Juan Bautista. But the city said, you know, what does 40% mean in terms of dollars? So that's pretty much where we are. We've drafted an RFP, which was it in the packet, Barbara? Yeah, so it was in the packet. And essentially, these are what it's looking to do. It's to evaluate the technical feasibility of the formation of a joint powers agreement for fire protection or a special fire protection district, determine whether these options are feasible within current cost, as well as examining potential future costs through sales tax, grants, etc. And then research the current residential, commercial, agricultural growth within the county, do some forecasting to see where that's going to be and what our needs are going to be in the 5, 10, 20-year future, and then determine what kind of department we need as a county. We have written the RFP in such a way that if the City of Hollister does choose to not participate, that it will still seek to accomplish all those things I listed and everything else that's in the RFP just for the county and the City of San Juan Bautista, without the incorporated areas of the City of Hollister. If the board approves advertising the RFP, we'll pretty much get it out there as soon as possible. Looking at the deadline for submittals to be mid-January, and then we'll come back to the board with the results of that RFP, and hopefully we'll have a good consultant that can come in and do some good work for us. This RFP was put together using several RFPs that had been done by other jurisdictions, namely Santa Rosa. There's a couple of fire protection districts around Santa Rosa, as well as the city, and they were doing something similar. We're a little unique because a lot of these other feasibility studies were for departments or jurisdictions that had an actual department. So the City of Santa Rosa had a fire department. These districts around them had a fire department, and they were bringing those departments together. In our instance, we've only really been contracting for the last, I don't know how many decades. So it'd essentially just be consolidating those jurisdictional boundaries in some way and kind of giving everybody a voice when it comes to a countywide fire department. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be...
Thank you. We do have to make corrections to the dates. On the front page, it has the RFP is due by the year 2016, and I'm assuming you mean 2017. And then on page 2 of 14, the dates also have to be adjusted to 2017 for January 4th and January 13th. Is that correct?
Yes, we are not expecting the consultants to have a DeLorean.
No. So with those corrections, we should be okay.
Absolutely.
And I believe there's one more. No, that's it. Just 2.3 and 2.4. 2.4. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any questions? Any additional questions from members of the board? Comments? At this time, I'll open up to members of the public. Questions or comments? See none, I'll bring it back to the board. So this is, again, just a fire services update.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve with the corrections stated. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, moving on to Resource Management Agency, item 37. Mr. Barnes, this is a public discussion regarding the adoption of California Department of Transportation standards for the use of recycled material in accordance with Assembly Bill 2355.
Good morning again. This is in response to AB 2355, which requires that if the board does not act, that the state of California standards for use of Caltrans recycling, Caltrans standards for use of recycled materials in road projects will automatically be in place for us. And so we're asking that the board adopt a position that creates an alternative to that, the use of our own local standards. And the state law says, or the AB 2355 says, that the board needs to conduct what they term a public discussion, not a public hearing, not a public meeting, but a public discussion as to whether the board should do this. So we're asking you to open a public discussion, hear any comments that may come, and after that deliberate, ask questions, and decide whether we should retain the ability in the county to use an alternative standard for recycled materials in road projects. And we're also asking, and I'm not sure that this made it into the staff recommendation that's before you, that you direct staff to prepare a minute order stating that following a discussion conducted pursuant to AB 2355, a vote was taken to not adopt, presuming that's what you do, to not adopt the standards promulgated by the Department of Transportation pursuant to Section 42700 of the Public Resources Code. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Barnes?
You know, ordinarily the state standards is the minimum standards. Are we looking to try to be a little bit more minimum than the state standards then on different projects?
Honestly, I don't know the answer to that. I don't think so. The state standards tend to be, excuse me, particularly Caltrans standards tend to be one-size-fits-all, highly engineered, and not appropriate in many cases for smaller or local streets. Mm-hmm. So we're asking that local standards be an option is all.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I think Caltrans really goes way over the top on some of their design, and it's frustrating.
As a former DOT staff person, I'm here to tell you.
Yeah, okay. Well, hopefully we're incorporating common sense rather than stuff that's coming out of Sacramento. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
President Cruz?
Is it the design concept that we're talking about, or the use of material on projects like repairing roads and things?
It's specifications for use of materials in the project, not roadway design.
Okay, so by opting out, that gives us the ability to do what we want locally in terms of combination of material.
We will be able to. We will be able to write our own specification that meets our local needs.
And Caltrans won't put us off on a do not visit San Benito County list or anything like that. I mean, they already have that, but I mean, are we going to get deeper on that list?
We're working to get off that list.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Supervisor Ms. Barrios.
Yeah, thank you. And Brent, it looks like this is really just pertaining to recycled materials.
Yes, ma'am.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to agree with staff and your recommendation, because I don't want our hands to be tied, that we have to just use. We may find alternate ways to do the job.
Right.
And I want to leave us open for that. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My comment, you answered it when you answered Supervisor Patel. I was asking, well, why don't we just use Caltrans standard? Why are we recreating the wheel? But when you said that their one size fits all doesn't, I fully understand that, and so I too will support this.
Yeah. So, for example, when we build a bridge, we build a big bridge because we use their standards. That may not be a bad thing, but we build a big bridge.
Any questions, members of the board?
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'll open up to members of the public. Questions or comments?
I can't write, so. Richard Betancourt, 4140 Southside Road. I use, or I haul a lot of compost. I'm kind of confused. Are you going into the business of selling compost, then you would be bidding against ZBest, or are you just going to compost for your own use?
Mr. Bencourt, yeah, I believe that's a different item. I believe that is item 39. So we're currently on item 37.
Yeah, well, but are you selling this, or are you just using a lower standard than Caltrans in and using compost for the county?
Mr. Barnes?
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Richard.
No, the short answer is no, we're not.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for additional comments, questions, or decision.
I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. At this time, we will break for lunch and be returning at 1:30.
.46 is a closed session to confer with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation and the significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Section 54956.9 in one case. The facts and circumstances justifying this closed session as authorized by Section 54956.9 D2 and E1 is the legal issues related to the Class 1 landfill. Thank you.
So at this time, we'll adjourn to closed session.
You know comments?